All right, we wanted to share a quick explainer video to provide some clarity around groups of 2 to 3 as to what the purpose of these groups are and to offer a framework for what a group time could look like. As desire and interest is growing for this rhythm within our community, I think it's really important that we all understand what we're doing and why we're doing it. So before we go in, let's zoom out. Why groups of 2 to 3? Why another gathering? Don't we see each other enough? Well, I think we all agree that our goal as a church is not to grow numerically. We want to grow as wholehearted disciples who make disciples. And the reality is that healthy things will grow. So healthy churches do grow. But as a church grows bigger, it should also grow smaller. We see this in the life of Jesus, right? He had the crowds, but then he had his 12, the 12 amigos. Within the 12 amigos, he had his three bros who he really knew. They really knew him. He would send them out in small groups, right? He sent them out in pairs to do ministry, and he taught them really clearly, when you gather with a few people, I will be right there with you. And so if we're serious about being disciples of Jesus, then we need to be serious about that. We all need a couple people who really know us, who are doing life with us, and therefore we really know them. And it's in these smaller groups of 2 to 3 people that that's our primary discipleship to Jesus. That's where it happens. It's on this anvil of authentic heart level friendship. And so we want to gather regularly in these smaller groups for mutual encouragement, accountability, and prayer. And as we are doing that, we are growing as wholehearted disciples who are also being equipped how to help others do the same. And that is the vision of groups of 2 to 3. I want to share the screen with you. This is the groups of 2 to 3 page. You'll find it under the House Church button on our main menu. We've refreshed it and kind of polished it up a bit, so I think you'll find it useful. But you'll see here the vision of groups of 2 to 3. We are growing as wholehearted disciples who help others do the same. So while a key piece of the vision behind groups of 2 to 3 is that you and I as individuals would grow, it's easy to forget that this is not just for us. By the very definition of disciple, we can't actually call ourselves true disciples unless we are actively seeking to make disciples. So we should all desire to be a wholehearted disciples who helps others become wholehearted disciples. So I want us to really keep that before us as we gather in groups of 2 to 3, because the old adage really is true, like vision does lead. Next, you see our role, keep it Jesus-centered, and we want to keep it easily reproducible. This guide helps accomplish those two things. It keeps any one person from having to function as the expert. These groups are centered on Jesus so that he can be the expert, and it keeps it easily reproducible. This guide is super easy to implement. It's super easy to teach someone else who's ready to help form a group. I think it's a good time to pause and just make it clear that these groups are primarily peer-to-peer. So there is some teaching and some guiding that will take place at times depending on the needs of the individuals. But let's be clear, Jesus is the one who's doing the heavy lifting here. In some church settings, you'll hear the phrase, I am discipling so-and-so. And they using disciple as a verb. We want to go ahead and just take that out of the vocab word bank of Antioch, New Orleans. Here's why. One, it's the wrong use of the word. Disciple is not a verb. Two, we aren't discipling anyone. People are not our disciples. Jesus is the one we are becoming disciples of. And so let's say things like I'm walking with this person, or even I'm investing in my time or my life into this person. This may seem like unnecessary kind of language nuance, but language is the primary way that culture is shaped within a community. And so we want to say what we really believe. So these two clarifiers around our role as participants in this group is that, sorry about that, it's helpful because it sets the bar at a realistic place, because let's be honest, we're all tempted to think we got to get to a certain place before we're ready to walk with someone. But the truth is, we just got to keep it centered on Jesus. We don't need to be the guru. We need to keep pointing each other back to Jesus continually, to him and his word. And then lastly, anyone can do this. Anyone who's a disciple of Jesus can partner with him to make disciples. So we want to structure our time in such a way where anyone can grab it and go do it with someone else, which is how it becomes easily reproducible. If you are a highly relational or spontaneous personality, or if you tend to lead more intuitively, using a tool like this guide is going to be really stretching for you. I know it is for me, but it's super important that as best we can, that we leave footsteps for others to follow, because like we just said, this isn't just for us. This is for all of those who in the future are going to be able to be a part of a discipleship group like this and grow in their walk with Jesus, because of how these groups can easily multiply throughout the city. Our values, belonging, identity, and purpose. You've seen these before. These are the three main areas of growth as a disciple. These are our values as a community, and they're going to serve as the pillars of this time. We are invited into belonging with God and his family. In community, in these groups, we are being nurtured in our identity, which is our God-given identity, and we're also being equipped for our purpose, our unique, vitally important purpose. And what I love about these three values is that besides the fact that they're the three key ingredients to human flourishing from a bio, socio, psycho, spiritual standpoint, they also frame the whole story of Scripture, which is the redemption and restoration of the whole person through Jesus and his in-breaking kingdom. Now you'll see this menu option up here is going to help you jump around this guide really easily. Just want to show you a few things here. We're encouraging people to kind of self-audit and discern what type of group are you needing. If you're a newer disciple, you need teaching. If you're a maturing disciple, you need strengthening. If you're a mature disciple, you need more of a mentoring relationship. So we're encouraging people to find where they're at and find a few people who can help build that sort of group with them. If you click on this, it's going to bring you to marks of maturity. And this is a great self-audit tool. How many of these can I check off? If you can check off all of them, you're a mature disciple. You've likely been walking with God for decades, and you have some real depth and intimacy with him. So you likely need mentorship. If you're a newer disciple, you probably couldn't check many of these off. So you need to find someone who's a little further along who can help walk with you and guide you into more maturity here. And so this is just a really easy way for people to self-audit here. Next, I think it's helpful for people to understand how to form a group. I think ideally people can form a group with folks in their life, in their house church, but that won't always be the case. So just do your best to form a group with anyone in our community. And then groups are free. This second paragraph, you can cover whatever you want. We are going to recommend some content, and we've offered some ideas, but we encourage people to clarify what sort of content they want to cover. And then lastly, it's really helpful to have a start and a stop date to the group. This makes it less clunky when you need to reassess and make changes. And then the second paragraph is it's ideal to have like 1 to 2 in-person meetings a month. And then you connect organically over text and FaceTime outside of that. And so while groups of 2 to 3 certainly require like some time and planning, the point is to build some friendships that have some actual substance and can function even when the in-person meetings may become difficult here and there. So we don't want anyone to get hung up on like, how often are we supposed to meet? What are the expectations? The goal here is kingdom friendships. And so that's much more organic than structured sometimes. Next, we'll jump down to getting started. So once a group is formed, we encourage you guys to get together, read this paragraph, which is a quick overview again of the point of these groups. And then we've boiled down some really easy entry points to ease you into the structure of the guide, which will be below. This is based off some feedback that you guys gave us, just a desire to not overwhelm people out of the gate. So the first meeting, I think it's great to like, hey, let's talk about the group. How often do we want to meet? Talk through the details. And then we want y'all to talk through this guide. This is a quick overview of why the time is structured how it is. Connect content commit talks you through kind of what the flow is going to look like, and that'll make more sense here in a minute. But the subsequent 3 weeks it's gonna provide one kind of like connect jump off point around the 3 values. This one is around belonging, and then we're gonna give you a text, a scripture to read, and then one DBS question, which I will explain in a minute, and then it's gonna end with praying each time for each other. By the end of these 4 meetings, you will have gone through the whole DBS framework. Next, you're going to jump down to the group guide, which is where the best stuff is. So again, the connect, content, commit, the kind of 3/3 format. This is the same exact format we use for leading a house church. So it makes everything really memorable and streamlined and reproducible, because if someone learns how to lead a group, they can more easily learn how to lead a house church, and vice versa. So we love that it keeps things much more simple. And so we want to encourage you to spend a third of your time in these 3 areas. You want to start your time connecting when you first sit down. How are you doing? Personal check-ins. Now, we want them to be super relational, but also purposeful. So we've given you 3 areas to check in on around the 3 values: belonging, identity, purpose. How are you doing in these 3 key areas of growing as a disciple? You'll see a lot of our 7 rhythms language in here: daily union, wholeness, personal witness. And while we provided like some really standard basic questions on each one, we also gave some additional questions, because we want to create lots of space for different places and paces in the journey, right? The standard questions are like pretty direct and assume growth. So the additional questions just create just some more space for like people who are just getting started, or people who are really stuck, and it makes it less one-dimensional. And then also we have these practices. These are the practices that live under those rhythms that you're talking about here in each section: alone time with God, abiding in God; Sabbath, physical, mental health; freedom prayer; oikos map, prayer, care, share. So you've seen all these things before. It's hopefully becoming repetitive language. These tools are awesome, man. Like, this guide has kind of become like a one-stop shop for a lot of awesome resources that we've been using in different settings around discipleship. If you click on the alone time in prayer, it's going to take you to the PRAY framework from the book that many of us have read. If someone's still growing and learning how to spend alone time with God in prayer, this is a great resource for y'all to sit down and work through together. I wanted to highlight this one too, the oikos map. This is like a super helpful page. You can teach people about oikos. You can work through an oikos map together. And then this evangelism tool that we've talked a lot about is super healthy and robust: prayer, care, share. And it talks you through that. So these are great resources to equip each other with, to check in on and hold each other accountable to. And so I want to encourage you to dive into some of this stuff and discover what's in here. The next third of your time is going to be content. We would recommend letting DBS kind of be the standard go-to for your content when you gather with your group. Let it be the backbone. It's just the easiest, most reproducible way to study and obey the Bible. It's being used by missionaries all over the world. But with that said, we know there's going to be lots of other things that y'all want to go through, and that's perfectly fine. We've offered Lectio Divina here to do when wanted. We also are going to have a page of additional recommended resources that that we would love your feedback on, and to help kind of beef up that page. And then I want to highlight this too, because what I think we can all agree on is so much of disciple making in Western world emphasizes the left side of our brain, which would be like the beliefs, the doctrine, the willpower, the strategies. But we neglect so often the right side of our brain, which is the loving attachment, the joy, the emotional development, our identity. And because at Antioch, New Orleans, we're really aiming for whole person discipleship, we got to incorporate both sides of the brain. So you'll see here talking, listening, being with. These are the three actions that are fundamental to healthy relationships. So as disciples, we want to grow together in talking to Jesus, listening to Jesus, and learning to be with him. And these buttons bring you to resources that are simple, accessible entry points to do that. And last is commit. Obedience to God and his word is going to be one of the most transformative things we can do together. Not just read the scriptures, but actually apply it, obey it, and then check in with each other on how it goes. And so we want to end as often as we can making practical commitments on walking out what we talked about, and then ending with a prayer for each other, a blessing over each other, and obviously praying for any needs, any personal things that come up during that time. So just to close, thank you for watching this. Um, we definitely imagine these groups being super fun, organic, relational. We don't want them to be super formal and structured. We envision this guide being a helpful tool that can kind of serve as like a quiet background structure for the group to be built on. Think of it as like dynamic, not static, where we got to go through this thing line by line. I think at first, especially, you'll have to reference it more, and probably each person will need to pull it up on their device and walk through it together. But then I think it will become less and less needed as the group builds a rhythm of depth and intentionality together. So want to encourage you to go field test this, take it into the wild and try it. Ask us questions, give feedback. It's all wet clay. It can all be changed. We want you to try it out. We want to see how it's helping, how it's working. Share it with those in your house churches and those around you who are also interested in groups of 2 to 3. I think it's going to be a really beautiful thing to see kingdom friendships flourishing and multiplying in our midst as we each become wholehearted disciples who are helping others do the same. Love y'all.